agenda, possibly Trump's wall on the southern border. This is according to an exclusive report from Reuters. This is something that Donald Trump has been promising for a long time.
We're going to build a wall. Believe me, we're going to build a wall. We have a trade deficit with Mexico. They'll pay for the wall. They'll be very happy about it.
By the way, who's going to pay for the wall? Who's going to pay for the wall?
So here's what Reuters is reporting, that Trump is laying the groundwork for his border wall behind the scenes, that the transition team asked the Department of Homeland Security to report how much money is available there to build this border wall. They also asked whether it could expand detention facilities and about a popular border surveillance program that was scaled back under Obama. Now let's take this to my political power panel. Republican strategist Kevin Paul Scott. We also have Democrat strategist Danielle McLaughlin joining me now. First, you, Kevin, what happened to getting Mexico to pay for it?
Well, I don't know if we're going to get Mexico to pay for it. But, you know, this is really kind of a crazy thing. People are saying, oh, it's a secret thing. He's behind the scenes looking. There's nothing behind the scenes about it. Donald Trump has said from the beginning he wants to build the wall. Now he's trying to figure out where the funding's going to come from. I think this is, whether you like Donald Trump or not, I think you're going to see a new way in Washington, because he's saying what I promised I'm going to come through with. And I think he's serious about following through on what he promised on the campaign trail.
And Danielle, a 15% surge in illegal immigration. That's according to Homeland Security data. Over 530,000 illegal immigrants apprehended in the last fiscal year. 450,000 kicked out. Do we need swift action on this now? What do you think?
Well, the president is doing swift action. Between 2009 and 2015, President Obama deported 2.5 million illegal immigrants. And in the last year, I think in 2015, turned around about 500,000 at the border. I think what's interesting about this wall proposition is actually relates back to the earlier segment about Obamacare. There's really a difference between campaigning and governing. And I think Donald Trump is going to run into some real logistical problems when it comes to the wall. Texas is an example. About 1,200 miles of border, about 100 miles is fenced. A lot of that is private property.
Yeah,
so there's going to be issue. Yeah, property rights taking is going to be a big problem, as is an environmental problem.
And here's the other thing that's happening too. The transition team also asked Homeland Security for copies of every executive order that Obama issued on this issue on the wall and immigration since he took office. Now, do you think that all of the president's executive orders on immigration, illegal immigration, do you think they could all be undone?
Well, I think if they can be done with a stroke of a pen, they absolutely can be undone. And I think you're going to see Donald Trump really take a look at what are some of the real failed policies that Obama's put in place by executive order. And I think that's where he's going to start. And I think it's a great place to start, because Democrats really have a disconnect with where the American people stand on this issue. And it's showing in all of their rhetoric right now and their campaign promises. And it's showing with Obama's record over the last 8 years. There's just a huge disconnect.
All right, Kevin and Danielle, stay right there. We're going to come back to you in a moment. Next up, media critics now openly ridiculing President Obama as calling him the tourist in chief. He's also being criticized for doing more governing in the past couple of weeks than he's done during his entire 8 years in office. That's what some critics are saying. Let's take this to the political power panel. They are back. Kevin Paul Scott, Danielle McLaughlin. All right. Danielle, let's take it to you first. Good or bad, this is what Obama has done since the election. He has banned oil drilling off the Atlantic coast, named over 100 people to senior government jobs. He's created new environmental monuments. The list goes on and on, commuting sentences of inmates, protecting funding for Planned Parenthood, transfer of detainees from Guantanamo. And Danielle, he's leaving behind $20 trillion national debt, more than $1 trillion new Obamacare taxes, $870 billion new federal regulations. A lot of people out of the workforce still, Danielle.
No, you're absolutely right. A president is not a panacea, right? So a president can't solve every problem that we have. And I think what we're seeing in these last weeks is certainly Obama defending his, trying at least to defend what he's put in place.
Is that because he's seeing Donald Trump taking action and getting jobs back in the United States, strong-arming businesses like like Carrier and the like?
I think that there's probably a reaction there. I think we have to put what Donald Trump did in context of what Obama did. Nearly 9 million jobs over the course of his presidency, and we're looking at maybe 8,000 or 9,000 over the last couple of weeks.
Right. Kevin, here's what's also going on. The critics are now calling, again, the president tourist in chief, who's spending a lot of time fulfilling his travel bucket list, traveling abroad, while at the same time bashing Americans overbroad. I'd like your reaction to this. Take a listen.
The early decisions that we've made, that you're starting to see some restoration of America's standing in the world.
There have been times where America's shown arrogance and been dismissive, even derisive.
The United States is still working through some of our own darker periods in our history. We've at times been disengaged, and at times we've sought to dictate our terms.
We have to acknowledge potentially we've made some mistakes. That's how we learn.
Unfortunately, faced with an uncertain threat, our government made a series of hasty decisions. In other words, we went off course.
And just within the past year, Kevin, Obama has called Americans lazy, that they're not civically engaged. What are your thoughts?
You know, when President Obama looks and he's frustrated or he doesn't understand why Donald Trump is president of the United States, he only needs to look back at his last 8 years. Donald Trump is a direct result of the Obama policies, of the way he's treated. Americans decided they wanted somebody who's going to put this country first, put Americans first, and whether Obama likes it or not, that's what's led to Donald Trump. I mean, I'm ready for Barack Obama to get out of office, and then he can fulfill his bucket list as a former president, not the current president.
Yeah, and Danielle, here's what happened with things like Obamacare. It passed on a straight line Democrat vote. The Republicans weren't in on that bill at all, just rejected it. And it was a bill that affected such an intimate part of our lives, and just a straight line Democrat vote. And then you had the president doing things with his pen and his phone just by himself. I mean, it seems like Trump's victory and his recent success at Trump getting businesses to act and bring jobs home, that it's spurring President Obama into this flurry of action. What do you think?
Liz, I think you're right. I think that the Democratic passing of Obamacare, and even Nancy Pelosi saying things like, you can read it once it's passed, was a strategic error and a real problem.
A big error, beyond
big error,
strategic,
absolutely, yeah, a big error. But what we saw after that, and you know, there's a lot of reporting around the idea that Republicans got together on the night of the inauguration and decided to block Obama at every opportunity, and that's why we saw, I think, some executive actions and some executive orders.
But they also accepted Obama's cabinet appointments pretty quickly, right, Kevin? I mean, they didn't do things. Republicans didn't immediately say we're going to block 8 of Obamacare's cabinet appointments, right?
Yeah, I mean, they gave him this cabinet he wanted. I mean, look, the Republicans didn't embrace all of his policies and do that. But what Barack Obama should have done is walked across the street, spent time on Capitol Hill. He should have done diplomacy internally.
Did he do that? Did he do that at all, Kevin?
He didn't. No, he absolutely didn't. He wasn't even good with Democrats. He didn't even work with them well, and that's why he had to legislate from executive order. It's why his policies have largely been ineffective. The American people have rejected it, and that's why Donald Trump is going to come, and things are going to be different. Like it or not, they're going to be different.
Danielle and Kevin, thank you so much for your insights. Next up, we have this story for you. This